kiss for you.
All right, so I'm going to start talking about the 10 years on YouTube first. So if you want to skip to the time code that's on screen, you can do that and get to the actual video. I really wanted to say thank you for 10 years. I've been here, a while doing this, and I'm never expecting much success, but I do enjoy what we've had and kind of the community that we start to build occasionally from videos that I do and whatever pops off in the algorithm. But I've been here about 10 years and kind of just wanted to go through some of it. And I really want to kind of focus around the fact that this is ultimately a discussion channel. I enjoy discussion. It was kind of the thing that made me create the channel in the first place, was hearing people talk about different products, talk about different things, and I wanted to put my voice in there and kind of talk about, what I thought for these products. Because people kept asking me, oh, what do you think about this? Oh, do you think this is a good idea? And so I made master reviews and also the podcast, the Mastercast, based on that. It was based on this idea that, these people don't know necessarily all about this stuff. Let's have a conversation about it. And that kind of led from the Mastercast into other things that I ended up doing. I ended up doing some kind of tutorials and tech videos in terms of tips. And so I started doing that within the mainframe. And you can even see, I started continuing doing that stuff like avoiding tech scams and how to fix a computer. And it's ultimately been, my channel's been about a discussion, on the recent iPod video. It's I have this opinion about it, but if you have a different background, those are experiences that I didn't have personally, but other people will have and they'll talk about. And I really like that. I really appreciate that. And you can even see that in some of the other 3D TVs. There was a lot of people talking about those. There's a lot of people talking about Windows and what happened to 5G. And so it's just all these different experiences. And I like having that discussion about, what people's backgrounds are and what their experiences are in different things, and kind of having that discussion. So I've really kind of tried to focus around that on my channel. And obviously, that doesn't always go super well. People could sometimes get mad. You can see that on my second channel on the video there. But ultimately, I really enjoy that discussion, and I think, more channels, can strive to do that, and that's kind of hopefully something that you've seen. If you've checked any videos I recently with comments and stuff, you've seen that, but I just really enjoy that. I'm still going to be around. Obviously, this isn't I'm going away or anything, but I will say that I went from doing one video a month to 1 to 2 videos a week, and not only is that, going to get harder once I find a job, but it's also not very sustainable from a topic perspective. I've never been of the kind of idea or situation where I'm going to make videos no matter what. I have always kind of focused it around various topics and various things I want to talk about. By going from one video a month to a bunch a week, you end up running out of things that you want to say. And I've basically covered most of what I wanted to say about the topics I had on this channel. I have a couple more out of context to do, a couple more master reviews to do. This is probably the last topic video I have at least set up that I want to do. And then after that, those 5 or 6 videos come out. It might go back to that once a month or whenever I kind of have an idea I want to talk about. There will still be videos I do want to mention on the second channel, right? I really enjoy the second channel. I like what the second channel is doing, and I'm trying to post there weekly if I can. Obviously, I do have, I think, 35 videos planned for the second channel, which is good because the second channel currently only has 17 videos, so I definitely have more that I want to talk about on there and sort of planned out and what I want to do. So you should definitely check out the second channel if you're still looking for content. Otherwise, it's gaming content, so it's not as directly comparable to my other channel. But if you're trying to look for me and interested in what I have to say about various games, then you can check this channel where I post weekly about that and subscribe over there. Overall, that's kind of where I am. I want to thank everyone for 10 years. And I hope to continue, even if it's not going to be weekly. And so, you can sub and do all that. And I will get on with the rest of the video. So today we're going to be talking about the best and worst tech products of 2024, and specifically and how that relates to more services, because obviously a lot of products nowadays aren't necessarily products, they're more services. So I really want to talk about the top 3 and the bottom 3, the worst and best products of the year. It's kind of like a recap on the year. So the first thing we want to talk about is Windows Recall. Now, a lot of people know what this is. It is basically Windows' attempt to say, hey, similar to something like a time machine that Mac had, you are able to go back in time into your PC's past and determine and figure out moments that you had. Let's say it's a photo, a link, a message, or something like that. A snapshot, effectively, of your screen will be saved, as many people pointed out from the original Recall feature when it initially tried to launch. It was a disaster. 2 things. 1, it could only be used on the special Copilot AI PCs because of whatever reason. And 2, it was a huge privacy nightmare because let's say you're working on bank details or working on confidential information. All of a sudden, your screen is captured by Windows every 5 or 10 minutes, let's say, and it has a giant database of all the screens. Now, it might not be a problem if it's something like this, but if I opened up my bank or my email or literally any other private information, Windows now has that on the recall system. Recall said, oh, no, don't worry, it's not going to be there for that long or blah, 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 blah. But, like, it's definitely not a good thing when it had to, like, completely revert all the changes. The recall data and basically shut the program down. And it's back up now, So the reason I talk about this is because not only was it a really bad and disastrous launch for something like this with a big company, it's also a huge security risk and a huge issue with all that. And the fact that it's a Copilot PC specific thing did not fix the fact that it was being installed on PCs that were not that. In fact, if I go back here, and I can see update on recall as of last month, recall security and privacy architecture, recall isn't secretly installing it on your actual PCs. This is the article I saw where it's basically saying, hey, this is being installed on your PCs even if they're not Copilot, and it's like hard to figure out if it's actually installed or not. Like, it doesn't show up as anything. You have to like go into the commands, into like a command window, and then check to see if it actually responds. I will have a Reddit thread or a comment down below telling you what command you can type in to check to see if you have recall installed, because if you do, you definitely want to see if you can uninstall it there. It may, depending on where you live, I think Europe you're required to be able to uninstall it. In America, I don't think you are required to be able to uninstall it, but you can definitely check to see if it's installed by that command. I don't have it with me, but I'll post the link in the description for that. So I definitely say for the first of the worst list here, it would be Windows Recall, and that's because it's supposed to be a feature that's supposed to be helpful, and it turns out to be a disaster and causing a bunch of people a lot of problems, and also a lot of, architectural problems in terms of security and all that. So the second thing that I don't think was really good in this year was another product, very similar, Gemini. Google's Gemini was a thing that technically released last year. The reason it's important now is because they finally branched into the platform-specific things. So something like Recall and Copilot haven't made its way into Azure yet, thank God. However, Google Cloud Platform, which is another, cloud as a service platform, Gemini is now trying to be used at that, and this is the Gemini at Work 2024 event. The reason I label this one specifically is because this is really their main push into an IBM Watson kind of situation where you're using it for enterprise level stuff. The issue with that is if you trust this consumer barely functioning version of AI with enterprise database level security and deployment of anything, it's going to be a huge, massive disaster. Putting customers at work using AI from industries for employee productivity and data analysis, hundreds of industry leaders joining in to be able to use this, or let's see, AI agents for customer experience, customer agents, and they talk about all the companies that are using it, and there's a lot of them. ADT is building customer agents, like all the support stuff, employee agents, which is like analyzing data and being more productive, which you always know works very good. And look at all these companies, right? There's a lot of companies here. Uber, the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, U.S. Patent and Trade Office using AI-driven technology. That's going to be great. Verizon for network operations, code agents, right? Like Google, not Google, GitLab, GitHub Pilot, I believe, was their one when it first started. Writing code for you, right? It's a lot of this, lots of companies and lots of different organizations. Bayer, Bank of New York, right? The U.S. Air Force, other smaller, less important thing, Randstad for HR services. These are very large, lots of industries things that are using the Google sort of Gemini system in ways that it clearly is not ready for. And so that's just the reason I mentioned this one is because this is where it goes from, oh, this is, a pretty cool, interesting look at some, AI from Google as a competing product to the OpenAI stuff. It's like, here's it actually being implemented in 185 actual companies that are going to be critically reliant on this infrastructure if they build it into it, right? Because that's the thing. If you're just going to half-ass it, you can do that. But if you're actually going to go full force into this, that's, a little bit concerning. And so that's why I really put this one as a 2024 thing, because that real-world case is concerning, and that's a thing that happened this year, last month. Third thing for the worst, obviously Intel. We're not going to go rehash it here. It's been rehashed to death, but 13th and 14th gen processors for a large quantity, 6 months here, were basically radioactive. Not literally, obviously, but in terms of the ability of them and the widespread nature of millions and millions of having this BIOS issue where they basically overvolted. They have a thing where they just, the voltage wasn't leveled correctly, so it would spike and fry the CPU, and you have a bunch of crashing and instability and all that. And that lasted for a very long time. Even with the more recent updates, there was no way to fix it. They finally put a BIOS update that you have to download manually from your motherboard manufacturer and install the BIOS and all that. But it does seem to have fixed the problem. I was lucky enough to not have this issue. I think I had this issue before it became known to be an issue, and then when it actually became widespread of an issue, I stopped having it. So that was just a fun thing. Like, I originally got my PC here and it was crashing a good amount, and hard crashing on games, having to restart the entire thing. And I was lucky enough to be able to fix that. And I kind of went in and I'm like, oh, what is this? And I saw some commands or whatever that I was able to use to fix it, and it fixed it. But it wasn't, it wasn't this. And then everyone was saying, oh, look at all the crashing instability of the 13th and 14th gen here, which was funny because I had it way before. But yeah, so it looks like that crashing and stuff is mostly fixed at the moment. If you're able to get that latest update, it's kind of been like on an ongoing rolling basis. My Lenovo system is using ASUS motherboards as a base, so I was able to get it pretty quickly. Yours might, depend on manufacturer, but hopefully all those should be out fairly soon so that you can actually use your computer now without the risk of it crashing. So definitely as the third major disaster, I guess, in terms of worst products, it would definitely be that realization. And the reason it's like a product is because these were products that were known to be functionally fine, and then all of a sudden have an issue where they're pew pew pew, they're breaking, they're super unstable. And in this sort of era of services, this, which is an actual product that you buy and don't have a subscription for, all of a sudden there's a thing that's like, oh, there's a huge major issue, and now it's a hardware issue. But I still think this is a product disaster because it's something that you can't avoid and is a required thing and has to be fixed via a software update that barely makes it through most of the sort of sections there. So I'd say those are the three biggest disasters. The three best products. Now, I'm not going to go for the obvious ones or whatever, but I do think, from what I've seen, the M4 iPad Pro is pretty impressive. It's extremely thin, has the M4, all that stuff. I do want to also mention that the three products I'm going to be listing here, I'm not sponsored. I'm not going to leave a link to them or anything to make you think it's sponsored. It's just, these are what I'm going to talk about. iPad Pro, very impressive because of the M4 chip, as strong as a laptop, as strong as an even desktop computer, relatively, in quotes, affordable. The biggest issue, in Apple Intelligence theoretically available now, the biggest issue is obviously the limited by the OS. There are things you can do. You can do Procreate, you can do Lightroom, Photoshop, I think. You can do Final Cut. As someone who's used Final Cut on the Mac, oh my god, I would not want to do Final Cut on an iPad. And that's more so just for the fact of I like space, and I'm already annoyed that you have constraints or whatever by using a smaller 13-inch laptop. I definitely would not want it on like a 10.5-inch, 11-inch kind of iPad display. Definitely not. Especially if it's like mobile enhanced and it's all that. It's just really annoying, and it's also not that useful unless you plug in a mouse or a keyboard or something in order to be able to have those commands and stuff ready. And so ultimately, the kind of setup there in terms of features for like application support and other kind of setting up, like, yes, you can do a mouse, but it's not like an actual mouse. It's kind of like a pointer mouse, like an accessibility thing. All of those issues that come up in iPad OS really hold it back from being a device that more people are going to use. But I still, regardless of that, I think this is an incredible feat of engineering in terms of the quality of its tandem OLED display, its thinness, its lightness, its quality of the speakers, and also its ability to work with that M4 chip to deliver some real power. And that is super impressive. And this is where the engineering ultimately needs to be going. It is really cool stuff like this. So I definitely think, even with all of its flaws, this is a definite product of the year kind of thing. Same thing with the Quest 3. Technically, this launched at the end of last year. I'm talking about here because, all these things end up having some kinks that you got to work out. We're in the actual full-fledged year of the Quest 3. And while I said in numerous VR videos that I've talked about, let's see, I think I talked about it in the video of what's good enough, as well as why aren't there anyone making VR games and stuff, as well as some previous ones I talked about, Quest 2 Postmortem, that the Quest 3, while it is not a perfect device, and not even close to perfect, what it does in terms of moving the needle, I think, is pretty impressive in terms of the mixed reality, in terms of getting that to a point where it's actually pretty impressive. The lightweightness of it, the pancake lenses, and that quality there for that price is very good. You still can't do anything with it. Even as someone that likes VR games, they're a horrible example, as I've said before, about what VR can do, and until it gets more sort of application devices, even something like Horizon Worlds that actually functions, right? This kind of Ghostbusters thing and all that isn't that exemplary. You're gonna want a device like here for work, maybe, or be able to have, you know, the thing that the Vision Pro kind of tried to do. If this could do even a little bit of that at this better price, then I think it would really move into that, because the mixed reality is very good. This device, with its mixed reality, with its quality of its mixed reality, and its VR in general, is an exceptional device. My issue with it at the time and still now is not only is there very little to do with it, but the device itself isn't necessarily worth that extra money compared to like a Quest 2 or a Quest 3S. I still think this is a much better value than something like Quest 3S. I wouldn't necessarily go and get a 3S. I would get this 3 for the extra money, especially if you're able to get, you know, decent return from your Quest 2. But as someone that has a Quest 2, I don't see enough here that says this is worth an extra $200 on top of what, like, usually innovation is, this is worth more than you're paying for. And for this one, I don't think it is. I think it's worth $500, but I don't think it's worth more than that. And the reason I say that is because, like, look at that difference between a $300 Quest 2 and a $500 Quest 3. There's a lot of differences, but they're the $200 extra that you paid differences, and not necessarily a groundbreaking, revolutionary, hey, look, now we have, like, it's way lighter or it looks way sharper, or like there's not a generational improvement. It's a very good improvement. It's what it needs to be, but it feels like that's what you would get at this price at this point in the life cycle, right? So until this maybe drops price, or until another thing comes out that's close to it, I still really like the device and enjoy what it's able to do and what it's able to see of it. And so I would definitely say that this is another product of the year in terms of the best list, just because of the quality that they were able to put on that, regardless of the issues. The last thing, Fitbit has been kind of a disaster recently. My grandmother has 2 Fitbits that broke recently, and they were not old. They were just out of warranty about a year and a half, and so she had to buy another one. She did that because they gave her $80-something off of it, and it ended up being cheaper, but I recommended her to do the Xiaomi Smart Band. This is the one I have. And obviously she didn't want to because she had already a Fitbit Plus account for sleep and all that, and these don't do sleep as well, but these are great. Now, again, not sponsored, but this is basically, hey, you want a fitness band? It's going to track your calories, your floors, your steps, your heart rate, you know, your sleep if you want to, all that. It's going to last for 7 to 10 days. This is really it. The best part, these are like $50 to $60. You're not going to break the bank. The one that is like this from Fitbit's like $150, $170, and I know because my grandmother just bought a Charge 6, I think, right? That's basically kind of what this competes with. Charge 6 is like 100, and I think grandmother paid like 124, and it's usually like 160, 170. This being 50 or 60, very good. Again, you have that quality in the band, you have the band types, you have the display that's really nice, and you have that touch sensitivity, all that. But it's just really nice to know that there is not, you don't need to break the bank and you can get this. And so I really say, compared to something that, you know, the lesser known brands, or even something like the Fitbit, the Xiaomi Mi Band 8 in these, you know, the varieties here are really impressive. And I would say this became like January or whatever, like the beginning of the year. But I really say these kind of devices are at their peak and are at their best. And they're really good quality in terms of like the design as well as the fit and the function of it. And for $50, $60, you can definitely, you can do much worse, right? You can get actual e-waste and for that, or even more money, and that won't do nearly as much in the quality that this does. The Apple Watch works pretty well, and I haven't had any issue with that, so definitely recommend those. So in terms of the 3 products of the year, if I had to give them, it would definitely be the iPad, the Quest 3, and the Xiaomi Band in comparison to like a Fitbit or something. And then for the worst ones, obviously we have Recall, that was a disaster, the AI Gemini thing, and then the Intel chip stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully, you know, thank you for 10 years again. It's all been this. If you want to subscribe, do all that. And I'll see everyone in the next video.